This is a rejection across Europe, and you're seeing it in the United States, a rejection of the pandemic measures that were implemented and would have been far more severe here if the Democratic Party had its way. Do not miss the macro picture. Now, and let me know if you've been following this. If you're in Italy right now and you know you're still alive, you can just comment below and let us know what you've been experiencing there. So, Giorgia Meloni and the party is the Brothers of Italy party, and there's a right-wing coalition. They won. Okay, Sunday's Italian elections, just to be clear. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you see this right away from the media, and this is their playbook. Their claim is right away, this is a far-right fascist new government.
Meloni is young, she's well-spoken, she's charismatic, and politically she's very far to the right. She's widely expected to be the next prime minister of this country.
Many of her fans can't get enough of her straight talk. It doesn't seem to bother anyone here that many people in Meloni's party are supporters of former dictator Benito Mussolini, or that the flame on his tomb is her party's symbol.
Giorgia Meloni has gone from little sister status among fellow right-wing leaders to now owning them, on her way to becoming the first female prime minister of Italy and the head of the most right-wing government.
Someone give her haircut the Taco Bell gong.
World War II.
What this victory means is this will be the first time since the end of World War II and the fall of fascism that Italy has been led by such a far-right-leaning coalition government.
Okay. What?
Did you hear the reporters say that some of her supporters were actually supporters of Mussolini?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Can people do math in life? Mussolini was dead, I don't know exactly what year, but at least 1945.
There might be a couple of people, of course, who were still around when Mussolini was around.
But were too and politically active?
Exactly, that's my point. They were.
I don't understand.
The indoctrination starts young. The Atlantic put this succinctly. They said Meloni would also represent continuity with Italy's darkest episode, the interwar dictatorship of Benito Mussolini. Okay, brief history lesson. The fascist party was banned in Italy after World War II.
Yeah.
Okay, and the party right now is very, very far removed from the Italian social movement, which is, by the way, the successor to the fascist party. Now, Meloni, just to be clear, these are her own words. I don't know if we have a clip or we have a quote. I think we have a quote here. Oh. She was saying this about the Italian right, handed fascism over to history for decades now. And, quote, unambiguously, she condemns the suppression of democracy and the ignominious anti-Jewish laws. Ignominious, whatever. I don't give a shit.
Just like Donald Trump, where he said there's very fine people on both sides. And right before that said white nationalists are condemned totally. Anybody in that. She's making the same kind of claim like, hey, I'm not saying there's fine people on both sides. She's saying that I'm condemning that. That is something that we've left in the past. Fascism is gone. Right. I believe in none of that. And what I do believe in is freedom. They're changing freedom, individual freedom and liberty into fascism.
Well, and here's the thing. The only reason that fascism is seen as right-wing is because they try to change the definition. If you go and Google it right now, it says that fascism is inherently right-wing. So they try and so therefore Hitler is right-wing, Mussolini is right-wing, Pol Pot is right-wing, Mao is basically right-wing. The only way I don't understand how people have gotten away with this. Fascism can't function unless the government is bigger and more important than its people. Right. All right, so there's a claim that, Mussolini was a fascist, Mussolini was right-wing. Here's the truth. That's the claim. Hit the truth.
It's a live show.
There you go. Yeah. So before forming the fascist party, Mussolini was a devout socialist. And by the way, he was still a socialist. So this is actually what he said after being a fascist. Here's a quote. Everything in this, well, let me read it like Mussolini. Everything in the state, nothing outside of the state, nothing against the state.
It was like a Jewish Mussolini.
Does that sound like Donald Trump? Does that sound like Ronald Reagan? And while we're being clear, talking about Americans as fascists, what they've tried to do in CNN and Titan, can you point me to one single ever, and this is genuine, I'd like for you to comment below, one single fascist government that supported more open free speech, as conservatives and Donald Trump did, and more people having access to firearms? Name me one. Ever. It's not possible.
No.
This is why they're afraid of it, right? So right-wing leadership, they made huge gains. We have what's just happened in Italy. You had what just happened in Sweden. You have Spain. You have France. You have Le Pen. You have Hungary. So this is also what's interesting is, Italy was one of those countries we were watching, in case you don't remember. Yeah. Early on in COVID, they have one of the oldest populations in Europe. If not number one, they're top three, I remember. And so they had some of the strictest lockdown measures.
Immediately.
In Italy.
Yeah.
So they have a very high death rate still, Italy. They have overall, if you're looking at the deaths per million, and they had incredible lockdown. So it's very clear to the Italian people, hey, all right, we've had to decide between freedom or security. They've lived through it. We've had incredible lockdowns, and we've also had a high death rate. In other words, if they were to say, well, you know what, we should have done more because the death rate is too high, you would see very quickly right now an embrace of liberalism. You would see an embrace of globalism. You would see an embrace of authoritarian government, of lockdowns. And instead, everywhere it's been on the ballot, there has been a rejection of it. This is a rejection across Europe, and you're seeing it in the United States, a rejection of the pandemic measures that were implemented and would have been far more severe here if the Democratic Party had its way. Do not miss the macro picture. You are seeing this sweep across Europe. And in your own personal life, I'm sure that you know many, 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 many people who were pro-lockdown, who were pro-whatever it was, mask mandate, vaccine, all of it, until they finally had something affect them. They said, you know what? Okay, we went too far.
Yeah.
There's a rejection of this. This is an example of that. It is a rejection of what Italy did during COVID, despite the fact they say we have a high death rate. We still think we shouldn't have locked down. That's what this vote says.
Yeah, and people are saying, look, freedom is worth it, right? It's okay. Sometimes we're going to have to face things that maybe can cause us harm, but freedom is worth it. Otherwise, you have the government central planning. And the thing that led up to this, and you and I discussed this last week, was all of the uncontrolled immigration that they allowed in. Italy was one of the main focal points of all of that from North Africa, people coming from North Africa up through Italy. And Italy was being overrun. They could not financially handle it. And so they started sending people up into the rest of Europe. And that's when the rest of Europe was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like our populations, they're not coming here and assimilating and learning the language and trying to be a part of our community. They're coming here and living as their own little community that hates our country.
Right.
That's what we can't allow to have happen. And that's what started happening in Sweden, started happening in Hungary, UK right now. They're talking about it all the time. France just
and then it didn't take much for them to connect the dots and say the people who want to change the fabric of our country are also the people who know that they can do that if they lock us down and basically mass import migrants.
Exactly. So, and then COVID hit, and this was like the last straw. You're just seeing people go, no, I'm sorry, the government, we are not allowing the government to be in charge of everything anymore.
Well, to give you some context, pre-pandemic, Meloni's party, they only won 4% of the vote. This is back in 2018, I believe.
It's not that long ago.
So think of that as a huge shift. The Italians view themselves as a people. If you don't believe it, ask them about the Moors. They have a sore spot about that. The Greeks view themselves as a people. The Swedes view themselves as a people. The Germans view themselves as a people. In the United States, we view ourselves collectively as a people who subscribe to these ideas as a nation. Mm-hmm. Now, they still shriek about nationalism in the United States. But in Europe, they go, ooh, we've been here before, because nationalism, let's be honest, it's come with some good and some bad historically with Europe. Mm-hmm. But it's not the same thing as being proud of your country and not wanting to be beholden to other countries' values that don't align with yours. We all were raised with this when we were kids. We are the world, right? This idea that the whole world, we're all the same. No, we're not. We're not all the same. And you don't believe we're all the same because there were the Allies and there was the axis of evil. In other words, at some point, we all draw a line and say, well, you know what? There's a reason for borders. The borders signify us not having mutually aligned interests or values. And you're just seeing that more clearly defined in Europe right now, especially with the EU and people wanting to leave because they feel like they're being held hostage. And that's a perfectly reasonable response.
Questa è la ragione per la quale oggi noi facciamo tanta paura. Questa è la ragione per la quale oggi questo appuntamento fa tanta paura. Perché noi non vogliamo essere dei numeri, noi siamo qui per dire che noi non siamo dei numeri, noi difenderemo il valore della persona umana, di ogni singola persona umana, perché ognuno di noi ha un codice genetico unico e irripetibile. E questo, piaccia o no, ha del sacro. Lo difenderemo.
For those listening on audio, she's talking about abortion. She's talking about the sanctity of life.
Qualcuno. Lo faremo per difendere la nostra libertà, perché noi non saremo mai schiavi e semplici consumatori in balia della speculazione finanziaria. Ecco la nostra missione, ecco perché oggi sono venuta qui. Scriveva Chesterton ormai più di un secolo fa, vediamo se ve lo trovo. Fuochi verranno attizzati per dimostrare che 2 più 2 fa 4. Spade verranno sguainate per dimostrare che le foglie sono verdi in estate. Quel tempo è arrivato, signori. Siamo pronti. Grazie.
Yes, all those fascists who are anti-eugenics and quote Chesterton.
Right.
She stuck the landing there, didn't she?
She did.
Boy.
She nailed it. She was talking about not being made into a number. Right. She's like, I'm not just a consumer for speculators to make money off of and these big corporations. I am a mom. I'm a Christian. I'm an Italian. Like, there are things that make me who I am, and you can't strip those things away. And her Chesterton quote, I think we have an overlay for that Chesterton quote. It nailed it. So great Christian thinker, obviously. So there's a lot of pastors right now that are retweeting this thing. She said, fires will be kindled to testify that 2 and 2 make 4. Swords will be drawn to prove that leaves are green in summer. And he's talking about flipping reality. You'll have to fight people to show them that the leaves are green in summer. It's like an obvious thing is true, right? So what are we dealing with right now in American society and in the world? Everything is right has become wrong, like you said, right? Everything is flipped around, and it's like, why would you ever have to fight that? He predicted that.
Well, what's funny is he meant it allegorically, like, 2 and 2 equals 4. He didn't actually think that we would be teaching that 2 and 2 may not equal 4, which is what we actually teach in classrooms now.
Yeah, tell us what you think.
It could be 22.
If you show the work.
Right. Everyone would say, well, Chesterton, that's a little bit extreme. He's like, it's allegorical, you silly bitch.
Yeah. But
only now it's literal.
Yeah.
Notice while they talk about fascism, because fascism, of course, if you go and watch the Change My Minds, and all the references are available at loudwithcrowder.com, they always tie it in with the patriarchy, right? Because patriarchists are fascists are patriarchists. You notice that a huge portion of them are women? You have Maloney, you have Le Pen, people like Carrie Lake. You notice there's a disproportional number of fascist women out there, apparently.
Well, representation matters.
Oh, and here's something The Atlantic tries to cut this off at the pass. We were reading this morning. It offers this. It says, Maloney is comparable to Le Pen in other ways. Both are examples of what political scientists call gender washing, when female politicians adopt a non-threatening image to blunt the force of their extremism.
By being women? They don't adopt that. They are that.
It's science.
By the way, how is that not sexist? Adopt a non-threatening image. You've always said that the idea of a demure, submissive woman, right? That's sexist. And you're trying to say they're adopting. I didn't see anything there non-threatening. I didn't see anything there fascist. I saw it incredibly threatening, which is why you have to invent terms like gender washing. You completely pompous pricks.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.